Ram Singh, starting his project Ananya, a startup, looks forward to get about rupees 10 lakhs from family and friends at the beginning of his project, about rupees 1.5 to 2 crores from an angel investor Pushkar Funds 3 months later, and another round of funding of about rupees 15 crores from a venture capitalist, Three Feather Capitals, another 6 months later. He further needs capital in coming years to fund Ananya. Let's decode different stages of funding and try to understand that it is not only the content and vision which is important in the stages of funding, but also a clearly defined plan and a path to follow. Bootstrapping. Before we start our journey of fundraising, we must remember that the term bootstrapping is opposite of fundraising. Bootstrapping means the process of funding a startup through your own savings. For example, Airbnb. Understanding equity dilution. Every time you get funding, you give up a piece of your company. The more funding you get, the more company you give up. That piece of company is equity. Everyone you give it to becomes a co-owner of your company. The basic idea behind equity is the splitting of a pie. When you start something, your pie is really small. You have 100% of a really small sized pie. When you take outside investment and your company grows, your pie becomes bigger. Your slice of the bigger pie will be bigger than your initial bite-sized pie. Idea stage. At first, it is just you. You are brilliant, and out of the many ideas you have had, you finally decide that this is the one. You start working on it. The moment you started working, you started creating value. That value will translate into equity later. But since you own 100% of it now and you are the only person in your still unregistered company, you are not even thinking about equity yet. Co-founder stage. Co-founder stage is not a must stage, but it is nowadays usual trend. To transform your idea into a physical prototype, you need another person's skills, so you look for a co-founder. But you can't pay him or her any money, so you offer equity in exchange for work. This equity is sweat equity. Equity dilution at sweat equity stage. The big question is, how much should you give? 20%? Too little? 40%? Well, after all, it's your idea that even made this startup happen. But then you realize that your startup is worth practically nothing at this point and your co-founder is taking a huge risk on it. You also realize that since he or she will do half of the work, he or she should get the same as you, 50%. Otherwise, he or she might be less motivated than you. A true partnership is based on respect. Respect is based on fairness. Anything less than fairness will fall apart eventually, and you want this thing to last. So, you give your co-founder 50%. Remember that this is a market philosophy and trend. You can negotiate it for less also. Seed funding or Series A round of funding. Seed funding is the first official equity funding stage. It typically represents the first official money that a business venture or enterprise raises. Think of the seed funding as part of an analogy for planting a tree. This earlier financial support is ideally the seed which will help to grow the business. Seed funding helps a company to finance its first steps. There are many potential investors in a seed funding situation. Founders, friends, family, incubators, venture capital companies, and more. The family and friends round of funding. Idea is conceptualized and you realize that it's time to implement it. No two ways are there. Either you do bootstrapping or you look for outside funds. Remember that you cannot go out directly to raise fund at this stage to any venture capitalist. You don't have enough of a working product to show. So you start looking at other options. Here comes first round of funding from family and friends. Remember that you cannot give an advertisement in the newspaper that startup investment opportunity or something like that, as it is prohibited by the law. Now you are a private company and asking for money from the public. That is, people you don't know would be a public solicitation, which is illegal for private companies. You have only two options at this stage: accredited investor, family and friends. Accredited investors. The SEBI board has approved amendments to alternative investment funds regulations with respect to angel funds. Under the amendment, SEBI will increase the maximum investment by angel funds in venture capital undertakings to Rs 10 crore from the current Rs 5 crore. However, the minimum investment by an angel investor will continue to be Rs 25 lakhs. But many of us don't have any knowledge base about the accredited investors, and therefore we look forward to go for the friends and family round of funding. The friends and family round of funding. Even if your family and friends are not as rich as an investor, you can still accept their cash. That is what you decide to do, since your co-founder has some linkages or some relative, or you have someone in your family, an aesthetically rich person who believes in you and in your idea. You give him 5% of the company in exchange for Rs 10 lakhs cash. Now you can afford some room for another 3 months while building your prototype. Remember, this round of funding is just giving you a breathing space, and you have to run against the time to build your prototype as well as to raise capital through another round of funding. Now you register your company. It is better to have private limited company. So, this is how it looks now. Option pool. Future investors always want an option pool, some common stock which is safe stock from you and your co-founders doing anything with it. Option pool is very important aspect. It brings trust to the workmanship of your company. So, this is how it looks now. Incubators. Incubators bring in early stage companies to help develop their idea with assistance in the form of office space, resources, mentorship, and access to experts in the startup ecosystem. In exchange for this assistance and mentorship, the investor or investing group will receive a key percentage of equity in each company. Accelerators. Accelerators imply a more expedited process. Companies that gain acceptance into an accelerator program are looking for resources and mentorship. Programs last just a few months before new companies are set off on their own again, and accelerators get in exchange a key percentage of equity in the company, usually less than what would be requested from an incubator. Excubators. Excubators help global organizations, investors, and startups discover and engage with each other using platforms, processes, and people. In simple language, incubators, accelerators, and excubators often provide cash, working space, and advisors. The cash is tight, about Rs 25 lakhs for 5 to 10% of the company. The angel round of funding. As already told, as per SEBI's guidelines, an accredited angel investor can invest in between Rs 25 lakhs to Rs 10 crore. Taking a pragmatic view, we believe that Rs 2 crores is an ideal expectation as per Indian mindset of angel investors are concerned. An angel investor, Pushkar Funds, agrees to invest Rs 2 crore on a startup. So, how much equity shall you dilute for this round of funding? Before that, you should understand how much your company is valued now before this funding takes place. With the prototype you have and 3 to 6 months of working model, idealistically, your company looks to you like Rs 20 to Rs 25 crore company now. But no one is going to buy this argument. So, be optimistic, enthusiastic, but above all, be realistic. We value our company at this stage to be around Rs 7 to Rs 8 crore. Now we calculate equity dilution for Rs 2 crore to this angel investing firm, Pushkar Funds. Let's count what percentage of the company you will give to the angel, not 25%. We must add the pre-money valuation and the investment. Think of it like this. First you take the money, then you give the shares. If you gave the shares before you added the angel's investment, you would be dividing what was there before the angel joined. Now, divide the investment by the post-money valuation. The angel investor gets 20% of the company or 1/5. The venture capitalist round of funding or series A funding. The first version of your working model and your traction with users depending on their feedback shows you that you are growing. Now you approach venture capitalists. How much can venture capitalists give you? Remember, they invest minimum of rupees 10 crore north or above. Let's say that venture capital values your company at around rupees 30 crore. Again, that is your pre-money valuation. He says he wants to invest rupees 15 crore in your company. The math is the same as in the angel round. The venture capitalists get 30% of your company. Remember, it's his company too now. Your first venture capital round of funding is your Series A. Now you can go on to have Series B, C. At some point, either of the three things will happen to you. After many rounds of funding, you decide to go public. The initial public offer round of funding. There are two basic reasons. Technically, an IPO is just another way to raise money, but this time from millions of regular people. Through an IPO, a company can sell stocks on the stock market and anyone can buy them. Since anyone can buy, you can likely sell a lot of stocks right away rather than go to individual investors and ask them to invest. So, it sounds like an easier way to get money. People who have invested so far want to finally convert or sell their restricted stock and looks for an exit route. It's their perseverance which they want to encash. Remember, cash is king. If you run out of it and lack access to additional resources, the game is over. Unless you have a clearly defined plan and a path to follow, you are going to end up wasting precious time that could have been spent elsewhere. It's important to understand that investors are looking to help the teams and entrepreneurs. They back with one goal in mind: to make money.